All right. Good day and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another Live the Fuel show. So I'll go ahead and just dive right in here. This is a show after my 300th that aired in early September. And we actually recorded this in September because this is a super fun episode on health. Not just health, but regular listeners have heard me drop my love and passion for DCs. And we'll define that more in the show for the newer listeners, because I can't just give you everything right up front. But this gentleman I'm bringing on today, he's not just a DC. He's not just a budding author. Who knows? Maybe he'll become a multi-author. I'm trying to finish my first book right now. But he's also a fellow lover of animals, eggs. I mean, when we talk about tractors, we don't know because I grew up on a farm, and this guy clearly knows a few things about this as well. So without further ado, the author and DC himself, author of The Weight, W-E-I-G-H-T, is over. The links between food, health, and weight that your doctor hasn't told you. Trent Mozingo, sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
So seriously, did you actually, like, what is your entire farming history, bro? Because like I don't get to geek out very often because I grew up on a farm. So
I born and raised on a little farm, well, relatively small farm in Southern Indiana.
Okay.
We're mainly a cattle farm, rolling hills, produce corn, soybeans, hay, mainly hay, which is a lot of work.
Well, when you were a kid, it was mainly hay.
Yeah.
Right? Do we have that? Do we have alfalfa as popular now?
It's still on our farm. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's refreshing.
We raise cows from baby to meat, and everything is grown on the farm. So.
And for the less experienced, we're referring to calves. And for the adult animals. So were you guys raising beef or were you going dairy?
Beef.
Okay. So you guys were going beef. There we go. So ladies and gentlemen, the popular white and black cows you see in all your commercials, those are dairy cows, also known as Holsteins, is a very popular breed. Those are not a typical beef animal. So now, did you guys have Angus or what did you have?
Mainly black Angus, black Baldies is what we call,
So good. Those steaks are so good.
Yes. And yeah, local raise, it's totally different. It really is.
Yeah.
My dad raises 200 calves a year to about 500 pounds. We sell them to major markets at that pay, and then they buy them at 500 pounds and take them to the full fat of 1,200 or so.
Oh, so you guys are just a phase.
We are,
and
the
then
beginning
move
phase.
On to an actual main beef farm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting. So you guys are you kick it off for them, and there's another farm that'll buy them and they finish them.
Yes. So depending on the price, value of per pound, if you will, commodity, we'll raise more or less of them full to fat, full to slaughter, if you will. Yeah. But for the most part, the vast majority go on to into an auction. We have multiple cattle auctions my dad delivers to, and they sell at just like anything else. But
my father and my younger brother to this day are organic cattle brokers. So
very cool. Very cool.
I mean, I didn't always name drop the organic, but then they realized, wait a minute, even the Amish and Mennonite here in central Pennsylvania are catching on, and people started changing up their farming practices, how they raise the animals, et cetera. And once they become organic, rated, they can actually get better pricing for the beef, or if it's going to market. My dad basically he's a broker, so he decides if it's worth more to go to slaughter or to go to market. So.
For us, it's quality of taste is pretty important. So we raise grass-fed on our free-range fields until they get about 900, 700 pounds. Then we do a little grain finishing just to add a little marbling to the meat. But the majority of their diet grows up grass-fed.
You are speaking my tongue, sir. I know everything you're talking about. Actually, it's funny because we don't live on a farm anymore. Obviously, I'll be 42. But it's my childhood, obviously. My dad had a dairy farm in New Jersey that he started his brokering business and cattle trucking business because his father was a broker before him. And then I grew up around farming. My dad always wanted us to grow up around farming. We had a farm in Pennsylvania when we moved to Pennsylvania, and I was there until I was probably 18. But it was not like a full functioning farm like you're talking about. Like we had, I raised chickens. I sold eggs on the side of the road. I know you're a man around eggs, but I had probably a 20 hen house. And but then we always had like goats, some animals we raised for 4-H, et cetera. It wasn't like a full blown commercial grade farm. So we probably had about 15 acres. So it wasn't like a big thing. You guys, what's your acreage, your family farm?
The local we connected now is about 480, I think, something like that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what you need. That what you just hinted at. You know, people take pasture raised and grass fed and all this for granted. I'm like, dude, do you know what it takes? You got to have space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and the dollar per acre here in Pennsylvania, you would be able to pull that off.
Yeah.
What you do. So
luckily, yeah, it's been in the family for 30 years or so, 40 to 50 years, 40
nice.
years, something like that. So
you guys also have the chickens running around the farm then?
Certainly.
Now, were you guys? Now, I will admit, I didn't know any better back then. We did not have them free range, or you know that we ended up because there was foxes and stuff we had to worry about. We ended up building a whole chicken wire, literally called chicken wire, fenced in, roofed everything. We used to trim their wing feathers so they couldn't fly because they would get killed. I mean, so you had to keep them alive. But anyway, so I mean, did you guys have that type of thing, or they just ran around?
So we had a chicken house, but we would let them out during the day. And then, so when I was a little kid, it was the funniest thing. It was always Easter egg hunt for me because our chickens would lay in the hay in the barn or over by the tractor. Some tractors with no cabs, they'd lay eggs on the seat. So it was me and my sister would go out and we would just gather eggs wherever we would find them and bring them in. But at nighttime, we would always tuck them into the hen house for night because that's when the predators really would get them.
I'm digging it.
Yeah,
it's funny because like fast forward to today, I literally love bringing up the past. Where in my 20s, I probably didn't talk a lot about my childhood, but nowadays I'm like, everybody's like, "Oh yeah, you got to get farm fresh this, a farm fresh that." I'm like, dude, I grew up that way. I mean, before organic was a label, before pasture raised was a label, all this stuff. It's amazing how. And I'm a marketing and branding consultant for my agency here, so I pride myself on geeking out about how good and bad marketing does things. We'll just leave it at that, right? Because I'm sure you could talk to this. Like people are like, oh, it's all natural. I'm like, well, what does that mean? Yeah. Oh, it's organic. Well, that's a government badge. That doesn't actually mean squat. You can buy organic chemicals to spray on your fields. So you're still spraying stuff. So it just cracks me up. I love it. That's
funny though. 20 years ago, it didn't have the value because it was normal. But now with the processed food world we live in, the value is really shifting back, and it's a progressive thing. It's a progressive thing.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we never because I mean, when I was at the school, one of the science classes they actually talked about crop rotation. And I don't even think they probably teach any kids what that means anymore. But, you know, okay, corn robs the soil of a lot of nutrients. It's a very, I call it a very raping plant of the soil and the earth. So in order to replenish to that, you would rotate in soybeans or alfalfa because they all either provided or pulled out different nutrients, you know, because then you plow it all under. But we never sprayed our fields with fertilizer. We never, we actually outsourced our field farming. So the farm never came through with nitrogen. They spread like real manure, real shit, like from our farm and from the other guy's farm. It was great.
Yep.
Never had artificial nitrogen spraying and all this other stuff that supercharge the soil.
Yeah. And that's what corn is literally growing on these days is nitrogen. That's what it is. And it's vicious because it makes the corn it makes it beautiful, but it loses so much of that vitamin content because you're synthesizing the idea of an organic idea. The plant or the soil is depleted, so you just got to make the corn look pretty and sell at a high commodity. That's a real problem.
Well, it just cracks me up because my dad posted a photo behind his house is surrounded by a cornfield right now, and the corn is got to be 15 feet tall. And I said, well, now when I was a kid, corn didn't grow that high, and it didn't need to. I mean, obviously, you want a corn stalk strong enough to support the weight of an ear of corn. But you know, if you study the history of grain. I love geeking out about because I am no grains, I'm no sugars, I'm pretty fat adapted as an athlete. But it's funny because you go back to childhood, you know, when the chickens no longer could lay eggs, you know, we would slaughter them, package them, freeze them for the winter, stock our freezers. You know, we would always raise at least one cow for ourselves and then, you know, send it to slaughter. You know, that was its purpose. We wouldn't have it. Yeah. But we always had these 2 huge chest freezers in the garage, man, just stocked. You know, my mom, we had a 1/4 acre garden. My mom would can her vegetables in mason jars. Now mason jars are like a trendy wedding drink glass. There you go. So
I drink water out of every day. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, because why drink out of plastic? So, but let's tie all this back together because clearly you wrote a book about some stuff. And the reason why I'm geeking about farming, ladies and gentlemen, is because the bio that you sent in is a big chunk out of your book, actually, you know, who you are and why you did all this. But it's just the reason why I wanted to kind of start this way is we don't script the show. But I knew you and I were going to geek out about farming. But I think it's interesting how it ties back to a healthy lifestyle, weight management, nutrition, lifestyle. And before we get into that, though, for our newer listeners who don't understand what DC means, what does DC mean to you?
Doctor of chiropractic. I'm a chiropractor by trade.
But isn't DC gotten a little diversified these days, hasn't it?
Well, there is some range to some degree.
So how do you fall into the range? I ask only because I love chiropractic, and my wife is a equine vet doctor and doctor of chiropractic for animals. So she studied alongside of human, I guess you guys all studied together. I don't know.
Sure. So there's different, I would say, disciplines in the chiropractic world. I am left-handed and can't get out of the scientific side of my brain for anything. I don't have an artistic ability. I can't play any instruments. I can't sing, but I know science. I'm good at it.
We are brothers from another mother. I'm a left-handed guy, and I never played an instrument in my life.
Yep.
I get you.
When we got into the chiropractic world, I wanted to be a chiropractor since I was 16. My cousin's a chiropractor. He did great things for me. So
wait, since you were 16?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep. My cousin's a chiropractor, and I went and seen him when I had a car accident. It made me feel great. He had a nice car. I thought, this is my life. I asked him how he did it. He said he went to Purdue, then he went to Palmer. So I went to Purdue and I went to Palmer. That's how it worked. But so there's different disciplines. You can be, they say, traditional chiropractors are more of subluxation based. They live the life of impingement of the vertebrae can affect neurology and deplete the body's ability to flourish, if you will. I lean more to the evidence-based side of chiropractic care, where I am treating a function instead of a subluxation. So someone has a general low back pain. I'm going to diagnose the pain generator. I want to know what tissue is actually creating it. And I'm going to do a treatment plan based on that alone. So every patient's very specific instead of a kind of a one-size-fit-all treatment plan.
I like that because I found chiropractic 2008 because I was training for a marathon, tried rushing the training, IT band got a little jacked up. Next thing you know, this guy loved all about the subluxation. Oh, you never had your back worked on, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay. But I've obviously moved around the country over the years. I've mixed it up a little. I've got to try different talents, different skills. The woman who works with me now, absolutely love her. She will spend, if we're doing work on the body, obviously, she'll spend 15, 20 minutes just doing tissue work in my back. Before she even worries about a manipulation or whatever you guys want to call it, the subluxations. And I'm like, but we talk I'm going to be going back in a few weeks. I'm going to have her, I need to get her to submit. I'm going to go to a lab, have blood taken. I want her to do a full deep dive into all my blood research because I've already had DNA and deep dive DNA analysis done by a great guy I love promoting, Dr. Anthony J. He's a geneticist. And he said, man, I wish you would have given me your blood work when you gave me the raw data from 23andMe, because he goes deeper than they ever could. And he's like, because I could really get a good wrap around it. And he came out with an analysis of the best supplementation based on my genetics, but also chemicals to avoid that are even more detrimental depending on your genetics. So he's like, man, if I had your deep dive into the blood stuff, that's even cooler. Because the whole point about I'm hinting at this is you dropped a big key word I want to make sure the listeners heard just now, and you focused on function or functional. And I've been really geeking out these days, and I've had a few people in that's functional medicine nurse practitioners, functional medicine doctors, and all you guys are awesome. How you guys all overlap and intersect. It's super cool now that I understand it more. So how would you explain that to the listeners, as a DC, why functional is such an important keyword?
Okay. That's a lot of people try to diagnose what someone's low back pain is created from an x-ray or an imaging. Well, you can't see anything on a static 2D x-ray. Doesn't matter if you do two views. So it's a nice selling point, and you could see, degeneration. You can see bone spurs. You can even see maybe a little bit of disc height loss, but that doesn't necessarily mean a pain generator, because in the evidence world, there's people that are 50 years old with zero arthritic changes and tons of low back pain. There's people that are 80 years old with loads of arthritic changes and zero low back pain. So you can't just say arthritic changes is your reason of your low back pain. Here's the x-ray that proves it. So when you check their functionality, what movement patterns they have, what segment patterns are moving, and then just simply understanding how symptoms present, how sacroiliac joint dysfunction would create a pain pattern to the knee and not to the foot. Pain all the way down the leg, it'd be more of a sciatic referral, and then that issue would probably be piriformis syndrome, maybe disc compression. So you got to tie
that
in.
piriformis, dude.
It's a good time to treat.
I'm a CrossFitter, man. You get, I'm sure you probably teach people to like just take a foam roller and just roll up on that angle on your butt cheek and just let it sit right in on it. And then if I really want to get on the piriformis, and ladies and gentlemen, this is like deep into your glute. We'll just leave it at that. You can explain it better, but when you find that sweet spot, you know it because you're like, oh, and then you just got to ride it out. You just got to ride it out.
Yeah, basically the dead center of your pocket. That's where the piriformis hot spot's usually at. And I got percussive massagers that really dig in there and just beat it up. And for runners, IT band is another big one, like you mentioned already. I mean,
yeah, but that piriformis, man, none of us really work that enough. And people are like, oh, I mean, I do yoga every Friday. I'm like, nah, it's like, yeah, for my mobility, I get that. But man, you got to get in. Like, I'll drop my buddy's CrossFit box. I'll drop in, and they've got the Atlas stones, the concrete stones. I'll go in and just sit on that. I'll get in on that. I don't even go to the foam roller. I'm going right for the concrete, man.
Yep. When I drive long distance, my right leg, for some reason, it'll light up that piriformis. We're pushing the gas pedal, whatever it is. So I tennis ball in my truck, sit it underneath there, sit on it, just roll it around, just trying to burn up that piriformis as much as I can.
I travel a lot for my business, and actually that's a great point. I mean, a lot of people, I probably do 35,000 miles a year on my car. Okay. I just travel a lot for business. I do a lot of B2B meetings, and I'll cover New Jersey, PA, and New York, even all the way out to Buffalo, New York. It's like 5 hours from here. I'm like, why bother flying? I'll just take a road trip. I get to see the country. But to your point, even though you think you're sitting level in a car seat, and people listening, I have my hands up on the camera, but I've noticed like, oh, my knee is rolled out a little to the right, my right knee, because that's my gas leg, and I'm tall, and I have the seat back. I mean, I have plenty of leg room, but I just naturally, the legs are not always sitting the same exact place. The knees, so you do that for hours on end, and you're sitting the whole time. Of course, things are going to either numb out or get weird. So, yeah. And that's just me not even being a DC. I'm like, yeah, this is why I love going to get chiropractic, because like, hands down, every single time I go in, she's working on the different tissues. She knows where the tension's at. She knows I'm a left-handed guy. She knows that I drive a lot, so that right side's a little bit out of line. But we talk about all that stuff. That's the other thing. And I actually, when I came to her, we didn't even do an X-ray. Most chiropractors always want to do an X-ray.
Oh yeah.
And she's like, no, I just want to feel you out. I'm going to tell me about you. Let me just feel everything out. She's like, I don't need an X-ray right now. And I was like, whoa, interesting. Because most chiros want an X-ray.
In the functional chiropractic, evidence-based, an X-ray for me changes my treatment plan 7 to 10% of the time. I mean, roughly.
So that's not a lot.
No. I mean, once I can't change your pain patterns functionally with the chiropractic style that I use, and I use this, a plethora of different modalities. If I don't make any positive effect in 3 visits, I know I'm not doing the right thing. That's when I can dive in to say, okay, maybe there's an anomaly. Maybe you have a history of a pars fracture, something like that. So then I dive a little deeper to do some imaging. Sometimes I wait 2 weeks, 6 visits or so. If I'm making no positive effect, then we dive deeper. But my diagnosis is usually pretty spot on when you just have a functional understanding of how the human body works.
I totally agree. I think it's funny that we're digging into this because it just popped in my head. It's like, every chiropractor I've ever gone to, I almost feel like there's an industry standard, the clipboard with the picture of the outline of your body, and you're supposed to mark and circle where normal pain or discomfort usually is. And then there's those little sections where there's like 4 or 5 lines you can write in like give me all the, like, you guys want the details. Like, okay, write in all the surgeries you've had, major injuries. But I think it's funny, people underestimate the power of minor injuries too. And that's where I think, even though the clipboard's nice and you're filling out the paperwork, no one ever remembers everything. And I always tell people, like, dude, you can't go to a chiropractor one time. Even if you feel great when you leave, you literally, for me, because I've had my shoulder rebuilt twice. I didn't realize over the years, if I have a hanging my pull-up bar, buddies behind me, they could see the scapular muscles were developed differently because I always had protected, because I was a left-handed guy. So the right arm was already weak to begin with. Then I go through 2 surgeries over 10 years. It had remodeled, not in a good way. And she's like, oh my gosh. She's like, a massage therapist would tell me this. She's like, oh, your left scapula, very nice and flexible. right scapula. It was like slamming into a wall. Like it was just frozen. And she had to completely open all that up. And we get, oh my God, just lots of work over the past 2 years. I'll just leave it at that.
And there's a ton of value in massage therapy alone too, which in my office, 80% of the patients see massage therapy in my office as well.
Oh, so do you have interesting, do you have on staff or do you contract out?
Staff and contracted in the office.
Yep. I tell people all the time, that's a magic made in heaven. If you found a chiropractor who does not have a massage service on staff or on referral, then at least try and time it where you can get a massage within like me anyway. I mean, I'd like to hear your opinion, but 48 hours. Even if I couldn't get it in 72 hours beforehand, if I'm coming in and I haven't had my stuff worked on in like a couple of weeks, I just know that it's not going to be as great of a result with her when she's working on me. Even though she does a lot of her own tissue work, I'm like, dude, I like to come in ready to go for her.
Sure. I mean, every movement pattern that you have, moving your finger, there's muscles involved, there's bones involved. To try to incorporate only one without the other is, in my opinion, going to be much less effective. So if I'm trying to affect a movement pattern of your spinal segments, I have to address lumbar paraspinal muscles and also the glutes, whatever ties everything together. That's where massage therapy really, it complements the chiropractic field a lot.
Well, I kind of joke around, like you guys call them subluxations. Some people call it bone cracking. I know it's just the sound of air, releasing, et cetera. You're not actually cracking bones, people. But the fun thing is that, well, think about it. Like if you're so tight, like for example, myofascial releases, big fan of those as well. Like if your tissue is so bound up and tight and you just go into a fly-by-night chiro session, no tissue work was done. They pop some air pockets, you get some stuff realigned. You don't think that's going to get pulled right back out of place?
Absolutely.
Right? Okay.
Absolutely. Yep. Chicken and egg scenario, really.
Yeah.
You got to address both. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So now let's tie that into, I like the whole chicken and egg kind. Boom, right back to food. So love it. Full circle. The book, Weight is Over, right? Links between food, health, weight. And I love the fact you put here that your doctor hasn't told you, which is, okay, you're a doctor of chiropractic. But obviously, you're kind of hinting here, I can translate it because I know, to the MD profession. The world of medical doctor, unless they choose it as their personal passion to figure it out, they're not trained, they're not educated on anything around nutrition. I've talked to them. I've had them on my show. I've had people say, like, listen, dude, you go to a regular MD school, you're lucky if you get an hour of curriculum around nutrition. And usually it's how stuff metabolizes in the body and how things are maybe tying into your rest of your gut organs, and boom, they move on.
Yeah. So this also, I mean, there's a lot of chiropractors in the world too. There's a lot of DOs. There's a lot nutrition. There's an infinite level that you can learn and learn and learn and learn. So to get to the next level, to really understand how it starts to create function, again, we're going to go back to the term function because that's what I treat with nutrition as well, is how the human body functions. So one of the most important things that I've done, and the reason I wrote the book is because I discovered basically the inflammatory epidemic that we got going on right now. It's pretty serious. Everyone's becoming overweight. We're at 70% in the country right now, overweight. Diabetes, they're saying, projected 50% will be pre-diabetic by 2030 or something. Like it's serious. So
babies are being born already diabetic?
Absolutely. Blood pressure meds are being prescribed at 14 years old now. Like this is a real problem we have. And when I was in chiropractic school, that's when I was leaning into this scientific thing, and I started watching these documentaries like Food Matters and Food Inc. and A Gerson Miracle. All these things, I was like, wow, there's an entire world of nutrition out there that I had no idea because I grew up eating good nutrition. I had no idea what people were suffering from. And when I was in college, right, I went to undergrad, I was poor, so I ate ramen noodles, and I didn't feel as good as I did when I was younger, but I still didn't know how valuable that healthy food was.
You know what the funny thing is? Can we pause on that?
Yeah.
Everybody jokes around about the ramen, right? And it's still around to this day. And I think back, and here's your budgetary wake-up call, ladies and gentlemen. Eggs versus ramen noodles. How did we miss that? You and I know more about eggs and chickens than most people. How did we miss that? They are so cheap. Like, even if you can't find pasture raised,
sure,
it is like Mother Nature's perfect fuel, an egg. And but no, we're poor students. I got to buy ramen noodles. Like, what were we thinking?
Yeah, masters, they were delicious.
They were.
That's the worst thing about all this unhealthy food. It is absolutely delicious.
It's all about making it palatable. That's it.
It's salty and delicious. And the sodium content is unbelievable now that you really look at it. But so then I started studying, like, okay, there's something bigger going on here. And if I want to be a chiropractor, I want to be kind of, somewhat of a primary care physician. I don't want to only treat back pain. So I started diving deep into biochemistry. I actually did poorly on the first exam because I'd never seen it before. I went to Palmer in Florida.
Yeah.
I don't know what just happened there.
Oh, I'm doing some screen sharing.
Gotcha.
Should we pop up your screen here, Shirley? We're showing the wait is over on Amazon, people. Keep going.
So I started studying a little bit more biochem because I did poorly on the first exam. So then I started really cracking down. I had to take it pretty serious after that. And I started like looking at it, and it was starting to amaze me how food really creates life. The human body is literally an accumulation of everything you've eaten this far. There's nothing else around it, So then I started thinking the value of food, and I started studying into all these other health conditions and what creates them. And I started putting all these pieces together through all these ongoing education seminars, and I realized that there is a lot of connections inside the human body. So I started laying it out there pretty clear.
Okay.
And so say someone, and the way that the medical profession has seen it is they see 10 different problems, right? They have insulin resistance. They have thyroid function. They have high cholesterol, high blood pressure. They have acid reflux. They have constipation and diarrhea.
Which are all symptoms.
They're very much symptoms, but they have made a very lucrative business out of breaking each one of those two apart, being a total separate, I'm going to use that, diagnosis. The word diagnosis is one of the biggest problems we have going on in our country because
it's so generalized.
It gives people this impending doom that there's nothing they can do about it. I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism. Like, okay, all right. I was diagnosed with GERD. Okay. But in reality,
real quick for listeners, GERD, go ahead and translate that for them.
Basically acid reflux, gastroesophageal reflux disorder. So heartburn is a very simple way of putting it.
Good layman's on that one.
I don't think you have too many listeners that doesn't know what a Tums is or what it's for, because everyone eats these things these days.
There's people pop them like candy.
They do.
And that, for some reason, they think that's still okay because no one's told them, like, oh, you don't actually have to keep popping them like candy.
Well, they're told that their stomach doesn't work right, and this fixes it. This is it. That's what.
Which is not. It's a temporary Band-Aid. I like to call it that. It's not even a pharmaceutical Band-Aid. I actually call drugs pharmaceutical Band-Aids. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's fair.
Okay.
And it's, again, they designed the word diagnosis is put in place to be a legal way to prescribe a medication. This is what you have to do. You can't just have a patient come in and give them a prescription unless they have a clinically approved diagnosis that they're trying to treat. So we develop millions of diagnoses to justify prescribing 12 different medications for a patient.
I love what you're hitting on right now, because I can't remember which episode it was, but in the past couple of months, I aired another health-oriented show, and the gentleman on that episode said, he's like, do you realize that? He's like, it's just people creating a new diagnosis for an already existing one, but they needed to slightly tweak it to make it fit that new pharmaceutical that they can now prescribe. So there's diagnoses that are actually on top of the similar diagnoses. It's just, I'm not using that one, I'm using this one. So to you said, like, it's becoming endless because everybody just creates a new diagnosis so they can fit this with that, and it makes them happy.
And you're also never allowed to get rid of it. Once you get hammered with it, you are stuck with it forever. You can't tell someone, okay, you have hypertension, which is high blood pressure. They don't ever get to say they don't have hypertension anymore. They have to take a medication forever because they have this, their body has this problem. And then
I was diagnosed years ago, truthfully, briefly, with depression after a bad breakup. I didn't know what I was doing. I was working too much. Nowadays I know that I had a full-time corporate career. I had 2 side hustles. I was trying to date. I was, obviously got brokenhearted. All this stuff. So I had stress levels. I had cortisol levels because of the corporate monkey game. I probably didn't have my nutrition as dialed as I am now. All these variables, and I'm like, I don't suffer from depression. I reversed that in a few months. So now, granted, never had it before, never had it again. So,
Sure.
But hey, I was diagnosed with depression.
And then and for you, you seem to be a pretty headstrong human. That's a pretty important thing. Stress, the way it takes on, it's important. It's very important. To overcome anything, it's important. So there's a lot of people that and I shouldn't say it like that. A lot of patients find some sort of satisfaction or relief from being diagnosed with something, because then it takes away their responsibility to take care of it on their own. And the hardest thing...
Interesting. Okay. I never thought about it that way.
The hardest thing for me to tell a patient with, high blood sugar, okay, we got to stop eating sugar. It's like you're taking them and trying to cut one of their fingers off. Mm-hmm. They were worried about finding a diet plan where they could still eat sugar.
Yeah. Well,
it's never going to work.
It's like, I stopped drinking beer. I used to live in Colorado, dude. I did mountain biking. I'm a ski race coach in my free time for years. Dude, all my adrenaline junkie sports, what do you think everybody does when they get back to the parking lot? They crack a brew. Okay. Yep. And then once I started getting deep dive over the past few years into my nutrition and everything else, I'm like, am I really going to miss a beer? No. My buddies all think I'm crazy to this day. And people are like, man, you must live such a deprived life, man. I'm like, when is life? I've actually heard this statement, worth living, right? Man, your life's just not worth living. You don't eat cake. You don't drink beer. And I'm like, wait a minute. My life is not worth living because I don't have a beer with cake. What kind of life are you trying to live? I don't know. Since when does food make life worth living? I'm sorry. I'm just not wired that way. I go skydiving. That makes life worth living. People are like, yeah, but you could die. I'm like, yeah, but dude, I feel good when I jump out of that plane.
Sure. That was a great statement, and that's because people have lost touch of what food actually is. Mm-hmm. We've totally disconnected back from, and we talked earlier about being farmers, and in my book I touch on this quite a bit, is what's happened as a culture. 10,000 years ago, we were hunters and gatherers. Mm-hmm. We were feast and famine.
Survival.
Pretty much. You hunt to kill prey, and then that's where you get your meat, and you
nourish.
Gather for berries, and that's how you get your carbohydrates.
Seasonally.
Yes.
Seasonally.
And you had to plan for it, right? And that's, again, people didn't live as long back then because there's a lot of famine. That's one of those things. Mm-hmm. But through the 1800s, we started to, community farming. This guy would raise the tomatoes. That person would raise the family would raise the
You'd have the town markets. Everybody had their specialty. Everybody supported each other. It was a full circle.
What was really going on is every day, it was the two most primal functions, two most primal instincts was reproduce with a family, right? That was one thing we worried about, and gathering and making food. That was all we had to do in the 17 and 1800s. There was no industrial revolution. And that's when it all changed, 1900s, when people stopped spending their everyday time trying to figure out how to gather, produce,
survive,
store food.
Yeah.
Then they went to the hustle and bustle of the 8 to 5er, 9 to 5er, where they had to earn enough money to then buy food. It was a total shift in culture. And really what happened is somehow, some way, the value of food went to the wayside. People were more worried about how nice their car is and would skimp on eating healthy to have a nicer car or a bigger house. So that our cultural shift went from every day is important about raising your family and making sure they're eating to I want to earn as much money as I can to buy everything that I want, and then I'll eat along the way.
Yeah.
And it changed. And pushed that to 1977. And if you read my book, that's like when it all really went wrong.
It's the year I was born.
Really?
1977, you said?
Might be maybe that's a coincidence. I don't know. But that's you'll like this because this is when the attack on fats, if you will. This is when it went wrong.
Oh, I know, because my client just released a groundbreaking movie. So.
Oh, really? So
Vinny Twitterich, Fat, a documentary.
Okay, I need to watch that.
Yeah, we just released it. well, is it a month ago yet? I don't know.
Great.
Oh yeah, we're blowing it up right now, man. Yeah,
Where can I get
we
it?
got everybody in there, man. Nina Teicholz's in there, Gary Taubes is in there, all the big names. Dr. Drew, the famous Dr. Drew's in
Got
there.
you.
Oh
That's
yeah.
great.
Oh yeah.
So my book touches base on the Senator George McGovern, the Committee for Nutrition, and how he used Ansel Keys' research from 7 country studies.
Which is all BS.
Total BS when he should have used Yukon's research about sugar.
Oh yeah.
So that's all touches base on.
You are going to, after this show, I can't believe have you heard about fat yet or no?
I feel like I've heard you talk about it on your podcast before.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, hold on. I'm going to screen share again for you.
Gotcha.
So right on Vinny Twitter, it's his Instagram. He looked down next to his desk the other day, and next to the Blu-ray and the DVD stack at his home office, he had this old collectible Life of George McGovern. And he didn't realize they were sitting right next to each other. And he's like, he sends me the photo. I was like, dude, let's get that up on Instagram. That's a hilarious comparison.
That is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Right?
And that's amazing. Because I usually, I've never had someone actually know about the George McGovern.
When you watch this movie, you will share it to every single person you know, because we go back 150 years.
Okay.
In this movie.
I like it.
We bring up, people don't realize that veganism was created out of a religion. It actually has no scientific standings whatsoever. We're not ripping on veganism. We just want to make sure people understand the history. So, and by the way, I ran the marketing for the crowdfunding. We crowdfunded this movie on Indiegogo. So last year we raised over $200,000 to make this movie. And then Vinny turned it around in less than a year. And then we've already got it on the market on iTunes, Amazon, Vimeo, like all the platforms right now. So,
sure.
Yeah.
So you buy it in DVD right now on Amazon? Is that possible?
You can watch it on Amazon Video. You don't even have to buy it. I mean, you can rent it. You can.
Sure.
We've got it. Yeah, we've got it virtually and physically. So if people are still into the physical, they want the physical DVD or Blu-ray, we got that on Amazon. But if you pay for Amazon Prime and you have Amazon Video, you could buy it on there and own it in your library. You can rent it. You can do the same thing on iTunes. You can do the same thing on Vimeo, Vudu. It's all great. Oh yeah, I run all the social media, so
I've never heard anyone take or even discuss the whole McGovern thing before. It's like something I've just thought. I don't know how anyone else didn't see this. I don't know how they didn't see what happened. McGovern,
they hit on. So if the fact your book is going to so align so well with this, it's. I mean, not going to. It's already up. It's already available, ladies and gentlemen. So it's just, you're going to have so much fun with this.
Steven, I'm interested to see someone else's take on actually how it all went down, and that's amazing. And I mean, I detailed a little bit out like what happened in the hearings, and just the things that were said were so perfect and spot on. And the FDA or the government was like, nah, no fly zone here, nothing.
Because as a farmer, and I'm intrigued to see if this is in your book. Okay, if you understand a little bit about history, everybody needs to study history. Okay, then you understand how it all happens. That's what you and I are geeking out about right now. Okay, when did farming become dangerously ready to fail?
When did
do you remember like our agricultural system was getting beat up? There was great droughts also. No, way back. I mean the droughts. So the government stepped in and subsidized farming, specifically grains. So think about it. Wait a minute. The government subsidized it, so they're getting a piece. It's still subsidized to this day. So why do you think the government isn't backing down off of the incorrect food pyramid that has grains as the foundation? Well, they're getting a piece of it. And then the pharmaceutical companies are making all the money off of everybody inflamed and sick. So it's a full circle of profit. Yeah.
I touch on that. I'd say this in 1977 is when special interests took precedence over public health. And that's what happened. So, and even to this day, my one brother owns an excavating business, and we do waterways for soil management and government funded, and it's literally comes out of the same accounts as basically food stamps and welfare, the WIC program. It's amazing.
Oh yeah.
And and it's still going on. And why wouldn't they promote processed foods? That's where you jam all the corn syrup and wheat products in it.
You know what pisses me off?
What's that?
Do you like pickles?
I like pickles. Yeah.
Did you expect on going? Did you expect to be asked this today?
I didn't.
On the podcast, you're like, we really talk about authoring a book and pickles. But seriously, did you guys have a garden on your farm?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Did you ever grow cucumbers and make pickles?
Yes.
Okay. My mom canned my vegetables, right? Kosher till. Why would you put butter? Why would you put corn syrup in the jar with the pickles.
I would not do
But
that.
why would you even think of it?
To make them super sweet and delicious.
No. So one of my favorite brands up until 6 months ago when I finally read the label was Clausen's.
Okay.
Go look at Clausen's on the shelf. The glass jar in the refrigerator section, there's corn syrup in the ingredients.
Just put it in there.
I lost my shit. I was like, it's a pickle. You take a cucumber, you take some vinegar, some salt, some dill leaves, you throw it in a jar and you pressurize it, and then it becomes a pickle.
It's done. That's all you need.
What the hell do you have to put corn syrup in there for?
It's awful. And they stick it in everything, though. Really, they do. Have you seen what?
It's everywhere. It's a preservative. It's a sugar byproduct.
Babies, this K-Rose syrup. It's corn syrup. They're just feeding it to babies now. It's just straight. That's all it's in there is corn syrup.
But see, this is why I'm geeking with you right now, because I want our listeners to hear my frustration. They know if they've listened to the show, but newer listeners, like they hear you too. Like you're a professional, and I feel it. Like, dude, you're just as frustrated. It's like, why are we doing this?
The hardest thing ever there is. And then so you push to my side of things where I'm trying to get people away from it. And that is, it's like pulling out their fingernails. Mm-hmm. It's tough because it's delicious. That is the hardest addiction we have is food. And it's awful.
Well, let's tie back full circle to what you just taught us. You were hinting at in your book, you referred to that since the Industrial Revolution, right? We create manufacturing, we start optimizing and improving food production, we start removing these, and we still have these food deserts to this day, these areas and pockets in the populace where it's low income, they might not have as much great food accessible. Mm-hmm. Even in this country, even the United States of America, we got people listening to the show around the world, and it's like, well, yeah, we still have our problems, but manufacturing was supposed to make things better, more efficient, more effective. And then they're like, oh, well, instead of using a whole clean ingredient, I'll just go ahead and use science, as they like to call it. I'm air quoting for the listeners. And we're going to create this and create that. And then they're like, wait a minute. Thanks to laboratories and science, they find out how all of our taste buds work biologically. And they're like, wait a minute. Let's make the most palatable food ever that is addictive.
Sure.
And two of the most key ingredients are sugars and grains, because the sugar is obvious. And then grains get converted to sugar, so you still got a whammy.
And for the most part, the attack on grains is a good thing, but wheat itself is actually good for you.
Oh, I'll have to agree to disagree on that one.
it's the way they age it is what makes it dangerous.
Well, the interesting thing is, do you know that we don't have any original strains of grain in this country anymore?
No.
But if you went to Greece, I think Greece and parts of Italy, original, ancient grains are still over there. They haven't been modified. They haven't been modified at all.
Sure. So the processing is what killed us with wheat. I mean, they bleach it, they chemically age it, and that's what makes it beautiful and white. I'm
waiting for the science to confirm, because everybody's all about the GMO this and I'm like, okay, I get it. Yeah, we modified the wheat plant to strengthen the stalk and so it can handle the weight of a genetically modified wheat head or grain head, so they can get more value out of the grain head, right? They were trying to build the plant so it can create more grain on one single head, but then the stalks would snap. So they had to keep honing this process. That's why, remember our old childhood, remember the song, Amber Waves of Grain, very, very, Go USA, one of our founding songs. One of the quotes in there is Amber Waves of Grain. And if you went back years ago, if they ever showed waving stalks of wheat fields or grain fields, it's like over hip high.
Sure.
You don't see that anymore.
No.
Grain fields are short.
Good point. That's a good
Stalks
thought.
are shortened, fatter heads. This is all before we even process it. But then let's fast forward. Now we're spraying chemicals all over it.
Sure.
Whether it's organic chemicals or not, I'm sorry, it's a chemical.
It's not.
So to your point, functionally, I'm like, well, maybe the GMOs aren't the issue. And I'm waiting for more science to back this up, right? They got researchers, but it's like, dude, okay, let's say it's not the GMOs. Fine.
Sure.
But what did we spray on that? Pesticides. Okay.
Sure.
Do you know what IDES means in Latin?
IDES in Latin, no.
Death.
Okay. Makes sense.
What is pesticides? Kills bugs, blah, blah, blah. Then we have to genetically modify the plant to withstand certain chemicals. Sure. It's this whole never-ending cycle.
Oh, the corn, like the BT toxin I learned about in corn.
So it's like, wait a minute.
Bugs' stomach explode.
Is it the GMOs? Is it the grain? Or is it our body's biological reaction to all the chemicals, and
Yes.
that's not just what it took to grow the thing, fertilize the thing, and now we move into what you were just about to talk to us about, the over manufacturing, processing, bleaching before it even hits the factory floor.
Sure. So gluten's been around for centuries, never was a problem until we started chemically aging the wheat. Wheat needs to be exposed to oxygen for X amount of days, and the longer it's exposed, the more gooey it'll be. That's generally how it works. So in our world, we don't have time to do that. So they just chemically age it to certain degrees to make it a flour for bread, a flour for cake, which is more dense, a flour for a bagel, which is a lot more dense. So they just basically synthesize the whole process, and that is a big problem. So did you talk about Harvey Wiley in the book Fat?
In the movie, I don't know if his name got dropped.
Sure.
I can't. I've already watched it 3 times, but because I don't even have a Blu-ray or a DVD, and I bought the physical ones because obviously I'm on the team, so I bought every version of it just to show support and get a successful launch.
I'll definitely watch that here probably tonight. But
yeah, I mean, actually, here you go. I mean, if in case you need to visually, if you look for it, there's the Facebook page, Fat a Documentary. So that's everything. And then if you actually click on their bio photo, when you start finding it, I have everything linked in here. Here we go. Hold on. See more. There you go. We got iTunes, Vimeo, Microsoft, Amazon Video, Amazon for physical purchases. It's on YouTube. You can rent it on YouTube. Xbox, Google Play, Vudu. I mean, we've already got reviews going up on IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes. But yeah, all of you probably recognize these names. Nina Teicholz, Gary Taubes, Dr. Drew, Jim Abrams, Dave Feldman. We have Eric Westman, Georgia E. She's amazing. Ivor Cummins, the famous researcher, Brett Shear, Andreas Einfeld, Jeffrey Gerber from Colorado, Gary Fettke, the guy who got his doctorate taken away down in Tanzania and then got it back because he was a guy that was in charge of cutting people's limbs off. And then he tried getting people to go like low carb and start cutting the sugar out because he's like, guys, like your diabetic condition caused me to cut your limbs off is because of sugar. But then because he's an MD and a surgeon, they said that he should not be teaching people that.
Sure.
So they actually removed his license from the practice, and then he just got it back this year. And I was like, they're like, oh, we made a mistake. They actually admitted they made a mistake.
Sure.
So I was like, what? This is a doctor just trying to help people get healthy. He's like, I'm just trying to not cut people's limbs off.
That cuts in on the greenback, so that's a real problem.
It's terrible. But they admitted they were wrong. They said, you know what? We acted too soon, too fast. I was actually impressed that an organization did admit they made a mistake.
And just Kentucky, there's Amish that are trying to use nutrition to help patients with serious conditions, and it works. He's still in jail. They put him in jail.
What?
He's in jail.
Is that in your state?
No, in Kentucky, a state south of me. Okay. Yeah. Says he was using words like treating a diagnosis, curing a diagnosis, and you can't say that.
Oh, yeah, you got to be really – see, this verbiage. You've been telling us the whole show. It's like, man, you should write another book. You should release a book on correct and incorrect verbiage.
Sure.
What sends you to jail and what doesn't?
So in my book, I lay it down very clearly. I will not ever treat and cure a diagnosis. What I treat is a deficiency because – from all of my research, a symptom is the expression of a dysfunction, and a dysfunction is the expression of a deficiency. Okay. So if you treat what you have lacked in your diet, with for the most part, you're going to reduce some symptoms. But I also incorporate, stress is a major factor, and how the stress and metabolism are intertwined. It's a major section in the book. So more importantly, I talk about the history of the food, what happened. I talk about how actually your human body works, because if you want to actually fix something, you have to know how it works. Mm-hmm. So I teach you in layman's terms, this is how the human body works. This is how the digestive system works. Thyroid runs your metabolism. Your liver does everything. Your adrenal glands manage your stress. All those things are connected. Mm-hmm. Then it goes into why we're overweight, and then why we have so much diabetes, and then why.
Do you hit on hormones at all in your book?
Yes. I mean, that's a major factor.
Leptin and ghrelin?
Oh, yeah. That's intermittent fasting.
Not even intermittent fasting. Like, they're nicknamed like the weight loss, weight gain hormones because
and they're backwards.
Sugar stimulates those two in such a negative way. And it's like
what I touch on is their perception in the medical world, which is why, a doctor hasn't told you, because they see it backwards. They see everything backwards. they have studies released that eating eggs is comparable to smoking cigarettes. Like, no, that doesn't make any sense. They have studies that says being overweight can cause heartburn or acid reflux or GERD. No.
By the way, that study about the cigarettes thing was from a vegan doctor who has just been outed this year that he actually never completed his doctorate.
Oh.
If you know who I'm talking about.
But they probably, I mean, that study went everywhere. They tout that. That's the greatest thing. It's the war on cholesterol. It's unbelievable. Yeah. So then I explained.
Cholesterol is required at the cellular level. If you don't eat it, your body will make it.
Your body makes 75% of it. What you eat really doesn't mean much. It's unbelievable how we have demonized this thing. And then, and that's the final chapter, talks about heart disease and why inflammation is the problem. And cholesterol is actually anti-inflammatory. It's trying to put the fire out.
Cholesterol, and actually Vinny brings up on his show very well. He says, oh God, I can't, it's not verbatim, but you'll appreciate this. He says, it's like you live in New York City, for example, and you drive along and you see a fire department at a house on fire or a high rise on fire. And a couple weeks later, same thing again. Another part of the city, you see another fire. There's fire trucks there, blah, blah. So it's like, well, then you keep seeing this over and over again. And then eventually you say, well, where there's firemen, there's fire. So the fire department must be starting the fire.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
So it's like, oh, well, when they go in there and they see cholesterol in a clogged up vessel, they don't realize, like, wait a minute, what caused the vessel to even get clogged in the first place? Like the vessel walls are inflamed and it's an inflammatory. Okay. So back to you functionally, what triggered the inflammation? Well, what triggers most inflammation in the body is toxins, sugar.
Sure.
Right. So it's like, oh, okay. The cholesterol's just trying to come in and help save the day.
Sure. And then, and simple thought process is insulin resistance. Doesn't make any sense. You're not insulin resistant. You're sugar resistant. The body, it's not that your body's insulin's not working. So you literally have too much sugar. The muscles can't handle anymore. They're full. The insulin can't push it in anymore.
And by the way, how are you? We're right at the end of our time. So are you okay for a few minutes?
Oh yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Dude, my dad was just in the hospital a couple months ago, and he's a type 2 diabetic. This is the guy who raised me on a farm. No history of diabetes in my family. Type 2 diabetic now. Anyway, he had some type of infection in his leg. And I was like, Dad, you need to keep an eye on that stuff. We can't let that happen. You're diabetic. Anyway, he's in the hospital, and they put him on a hospital regimen of insulin, more than he normally is.
Okay.
I'm like, I've been helping him reverse him and take him back to our childhood and help him get down. Like, he's now only on one diabetic med, and he used to be on 3. And I was like, okay. I was like, Dad, we're trying to go back to the way you raised me. Just do that. Anyway, I was like, why are they putting you on this? They said, well, it's to protect themselves, also to protect him, because they want to make sure he doesn't become insulin resistant. I heard those words. I'm like, what are you talking about? Then, because he's diabetic, they're like, well, you really should be on a heart medicine. Wait a minute. My father has 0 heart conditions whatsoever. Great blood pressure, everything else. And just because he's a type 2 diabetic, now all of a sudden, some pharmaceutical company taught your doctors that, oh, if you're a type 2 diabetic, you automatically go on a heart med. You're supposed to be on a statin. A statin does not cure or help anything.
It actually increases the chance of developing type 2 diabetes. But
boom. I love you, man. I love you.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's totally backwards. So in my book, I talk about, there's holism and reductionism. Holism is seeing big picture. You see it all. You see the whole human body, how it works integrated together. Reductionism is you're trying to pinpoint everything down. Our medical system is the most reductionist
platform
industry that you can find, because they try to say this is the one little thing we need to work on and not say, okay, it's all integrated. So I use the term people that are diabetic, right? They all have high blood pressure for the most part, general speaking here. Inflammatory people, they have higher blood pressure, high cholesterol, high sugar levels, low thyroid function, and the medical system sees them as 5 different conditions, where in my book I lay out, no, this is how the human body works, and there's a very systematic decay of our health. Very systematic. I call it the progressive decline disorder. And it goes in this very systematic order that I lay out in the book. It starts with digestion, goes with liver fatigue, thyroid dysfunction.
Oh, here we go.
Hormone imbalance.
I'm going to screen share again. And for our video watchers, here's your book on Amazon, zoomed in on the bottom of your cover. How you kind of interconnect everything on a grid. I like that. Digestive distress, cholesterol, obesity in the center, depression, hypothyroid, heart disease, adrenal fatigue, liver disease, diabetes. all interconnected.
Mm-hmm. So you have all of these dysfunctions, not one of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not surprising that more people, depression happens in overweight people. And in the book, I lay out exactly why that happens. Why hypothyroid function is what runs your metabolic rate, and when it decreases, why that happens. Why it's linked to digestive distress. How cholesterol is linked to thyroid gland because of the liver for the most part. And I lay it all out there so people then start to take the responsibility of their own health. You know now how your body works. Now it's time to take care of it yourself. No doctor is responsible for your health for the most part. You are. So that's really what the nuts and bolts of the book was for.
Hold on. Say that again. I've said this on many shows. What you just said about responsibility.
Sure. There's not a doctor that is responsible for your health. You are.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I've had another doctor on the show about a year and a half ago, and I'll never forget his quote. He said, we all need to become our own inner physicians. We need to take accountability. This is our body. This is our lifestyle, not life, lifestyle. And one thing I've learned over 3 years of podcasting now is something I start to throw here now. You might appreciate it. Feel free to take it. Is I was like, listen, guys, let's all take a deep breath. And also let's realize we're all at a different place on the timeline. And this comes from knowledge to training to execution, right? Knowledge is great, but if you don't take any training, the knowledge falls flat. And then even with the training is important. Once I learn it, I learn how to be trained and coached on it. Well, then it still has to follow through to execution. So, and all of this is actually a never-ending cyclical cycle, because as you acquire more knowledge, as you gain more training, like I didn't always know what I know now. And I'm going to know even more in the next 5 years. So I have to keep this process going.
Sure.
That's also because I've taken the hard stance on full accountability for that.
Sure.
So
another excellent way to explain to people that they're responsible is I see all these different conditions on the front of the book. So if you look at that like you are diagnosed, you're stuck. You can't go anywhere.
Yeah,
But
it looks like it here. I'll share it again. It looks like you're kind of stuck in this. Like there's none of your lines connect out. They're all interconnected in.
So what I tell people is health has nothing to do with any of these diagnoses. It's all about functionality. How well is your human body functioning? So I lay it all out there, my progressive decline disorder, even my analysis system, which is free on my website, New Start Solution. You can get a detailed report.
Over there. Boom. Where's that at, by the way?
What's your health percentage there? If you click on that one.
Oh, there we go.
It just click on the top of it.
Yep.
And it goes through you got to go through a questionnaire and stuff. But anyway.
Okay, cool.
It's a very long question. It's like 120 questions. But so it gives you a detailed report on what your health is doing inside your body, how any of your functions are working. But more importantly, you see a number there, 69%.
Yeah.
For me, everyone's health is not at any static point ever in their life, ever. It's going up or it's going down from good to bad.
Even me being a health nut and a fitness nut, I am, depending on the time of year and what sports I'm doing, or me trying to finish writing my first book right now, it's like, okay, cortisol levels are going to be shifting. Dietary practices are shifting. Yeah. Yeah.
So every time they fill that quiz out, they hit land, boom, they're at 68%, 75%. That's where they're at. Now, good choices, low stress levels, healthy foods, right, exercise is going to push you up. You're going to get healthier. You're going to 80%, 90%. But if you have a week where you binge eat, you have a cramming for an exam, or you have your boss looking over your shoulder and you're stressed, you're going to slide down that rule. So my only advice for almost every patient, and it should be everyone, but most of them won't even listen to anything, it seems, but is
you're not alone, my friend.
Make more good choices than bad. That's all you got to do. You have to outweigh your bad choices with good ones. If you do that, you're going to do all right. But some people just slippery slope.
I like what you're hitting on right there, because that's actually a great way to start bringing us to the close of the show, is because whether, again, tagline for this show, we fuel your health, business, and lifestyle, right? We're clearly hitting a lot on health today, but everything we're discussing can actually totally cross over into the business world, entrepreneurship, or just lifestyle choices in general. Is that there's no such thing as perfection. The sooner we realize that and stop touting it, I'm not perfect at that. Oh, I wish I could be as perfect as you as that. It's not real, dude. We're human beings. We're going to make mistakes. To your point, we're going to have good days, bad days, good weeks, bad weeks, good months, good years, bad years. But to your point, okay, just try and win more than lose.
Absolutely. Right? That's all.
Yeah, because even as a fitness nut, you can compete in the same race every single year. There's going to be new athletes coming in with new talents. You might get knocked down a notch. Okay.
Sure. And the same obstacle last year was easy. This year might be a little more difficult. You never really know.
Yeah, the terrain could change. I race mountain bikes when I'm like, dude, the course could change. A course could have gotten washed out in the spring, fall, whatever. You don't know. You don't know. It's Mother Nature. The earth is always changing.
Sure. It's more good choices than bad. And a lot of people get into this it's a slippery slope, but they're stressed out. They hate their job. They don't plan for their meals. They eat fast food because they don't have time. And
everybody makes an excuse for it.
Well,
you don't understand. I have a busy lifestyle.
I got 2 kids and this and that, and that's why my kids eat this terrible food too. And then there's another thing for parents. Like, your kids are responsible. You're responsible for feeding your kid. Whether you're doing a good job or bad is very reflective in their health, and it's important, in my opinion. I'm
not a parent, but I have a lot of friends are, and I'm like, man, when I hear a parent try and make an excuse for that, I'm like, dude, my wife and I chose to not reproduce. Okay. That's our hard stance on that. You chose to reproduce. You took the responsibility to raise a human being. That's why I don't want to be a parent, because I know I would go like ape. I'd be like so obsessed and crazy about it. Like, I can't do it. I was like, I get too many other things I want to do. But yeah, I was like, parental. I might piss people off right now. I don't care. It's my show, guys. Like, take accountability.
Absolutely.
Take responsibility, not just accountability. Like, okay, and even if you made mistakes, we're not ripping you up and down right now. To your point, you just kind of hinted at, guys, you made some mistakes, but as long as you're creating more wins versus losses, you're still trying to move the needle. You're moving the needle.
Moving the needle in the green. Absolutely.
Because a lot of parents don't know. And maybe they'll listen to the show and be like, oh, man, okay, well, again, we're not trying to call them out. We're saying, all right, start the learning process.
Yeah.
What I know now took me over 7 years of obsession to get where I am now. And I'm still learning.
Yeah. It took me 5 years to write that book. I mean, it's process, but just more good days than bad. I stayed with it, stick going, and it's here, it's pretty important.
Yeah.
But yeah,
if you care about something enough, I truly believe things will get easier along the way. The timeline will shorten and reduce in intensity along the way as well. But you got to get passionate about it. You got to take it seriously.
Absolutely. Take it seriously.
Yeah.
Well put.
I don't know why it takes people like you and I to talk about it that way, but if we rub off on at least one person, that excites me. That's why I have a podcast show. I'm like, oh my God, if I can get through to just one person, that makes it all worth it.
Sure. That's why I'm here. Maybe that one person.
I mean, you clearly took it seriously. You became a doctor.
Yeah. I took it seriously. I became a doctor because my cousin had a Porsche, but
wait, turns out I thought it's called Porsche.
I'm not sure. I'm from Indiana. I think we say everything wrong, but yeah, it's been a fun journey so far.
Well, I love your passion. I mean, I love the fact that when I meet not just a doctor who cares, I love DCs, but also when you go and create a book that I love the fact you tied it all together and you're hitting on the timeline. You got history. I don't know if you noticed earlier in the show when I was screen sharing, I have an Amazon influencer page. So when people click on the Amazon banners on livethefield.com, ladies and gentlemen, it'll take you right to the influencer page and you can click on my recommended books. Well, he's in there now. So just if you can't follow everything else that we're going to have linked in the show notes on the website or whatever, just go there. It's easy. Just click on the banner, click on book recommendations, books right there.
Sure.
Well, listen, Doc, I've had a blast with you, clearly, if you haven't picked up on it.
Yeah, it's been a good time.
My wife might be a little bit jealous. I don't know. But I asked my guest co-hosts to, and you've already kind of nailed it home, but I asked them, say, you know what are some final words you want to leave behind? Is there something all-encompassing, something that want to sum it up, just to really, I guess, hit it out of the park or just really, really close out strong on something that's really important you want the listeners to really leave with?
Sure. I would say most important thing is take responsibility for your health. You're the only one. No one should be more excited about your health than you are. Once you get excited about it, there's a lot of really good answers out there now. It's this movement to whole food health it's really changing a lot. And there's not a single person that I know that I've ever treated that made 100% of the right choices. And they've come in and they've had a week that went by that was stressful, terrible, traveling, whatever it was. But we get back on the horse, they clean it up again, and then they just kind of watch their health get better. If you don't feel good, it's time to make a change, I would say.
I love it. There you go, people. Embrace change. That's a great way to actually close it out, because I don't care what I'm talking about. One of the definitions of success is getting better at embracing change.
Yeah.
Health, business, lifestyle, fitness, relationships. Like, guys, you can't be so hard stance, especially if it's a place in your life where things are not going the right way, especially around health. Embrace a change. I love it. Well, listen, hang tight. I want to give you a proper goodbye off the air. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we shared it on the show. All that stuff will be linked in the show notes on livethefield.com. But remember, it's new-startsolution.com. That's where that what's your health percentage is right in his toolbar. That'll be all linked on the website. Again, his book on Amazon, The Wait Is Over, is also going to be linked on there as well. And then if you actually are in and around the Indiana area, make sure you check him out. His other brand, or his practice is new-starthealthcenter.com as well. So you got 3 different ways to hook up with this guy. So not hard, not rocket science. Embrace a change, take action, take your health seriously. And again, let me remind you guys, we're here to fuel your health, your business, your lifestyle. You too can live the fuel. And we're going to talk to you guys again soon.